Okay.
So we moved
mainly
on.
residential.
Mayor, can you tone it down?
To start with, Mowing.
Boy, you were not invited tomorrow.
We'll redo the seating.
There you go. Looks like this is the mayor's dinner and you just full control.
Yeah.
We'll see how many remain standing with it.
Yeah. Oh, one seat short.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Community Development Committee meeting. We have 8 action items and 3 discussion items. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on something that isn't on the agenda, please feel free to come up and speak to the dais if you'd like to. Say your name and what city you're from. If you want to just step on over here, thank you.
My name's Luke Koenig. I live in Mission, Kansas. Lived here for 3.5 years now. Since I moved in, I normally take Lamar to get on the interstate. And since I'm at Maple, I normally get on 51st. That hill there, as many of you know, it's like a roller coaster pretty much. It looks like you're going down the Mamba. I'd like to propose that the city were to do a speed survey and just see what the average vehicle's moving at. And then that would confirm if we have a problem. And then if so, in the next month or so, come up with proposed solutions.
Have you noticed people speeding through there?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I actually know someone who got a ticket speeding there.
Where'd you get that at?
Are you interested in a reduction in the speed limit?
Either a device that would slow the traffic down or raising the posted limit. Or coming up with something so people can see over the hill, but they wouldn't raise it. I see both sides of the argument.
We raised it to 60.
You'd have people jumping all the way to the Lamar if they raised that hill to 60.
And I took, you had called me, I appreciate that, Luke. And I talked to our city administrator, Ms. Smith. And you said you might have got some information either today or...
Well, wasn't able to talk very long with our traffic engineer about that. I mean, the posted speed limit on that street is 25 miles an hour, and it's fairly consistent with, the terrain and the fact that it's a residential neighborhood, probably the 2 biggest factors that would be driving the current posted speed limit.
Yeah.
So the question to the council is, do we want to do some sort of traffic study to determine, whether the change, you would have to adopt and enact a change to a speed limit, either up or down.
Do we know if more tickets are written there than other areas? Or?
Well, there's a visibility factor too.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that hill. It's really
Well,
scary.
absolutely, which is why typically on a street where the terrain is that dramatic, you're going to have a lower speed limit.
Right.
And so,
I don't think the speed that the people are driving would change one bit if you change the speed limit to 10 miles an hour. I think. Right.
It's the terrain. If you're going 20, 25, which is what most people feel safe going down 51st Street, you going down the hill, you'll be going 45, you don't tap the brakes. If you ride your brakes, you'll be going 35 right at the bottom.
And Laura, I've expressed this concern to you before, especially because if you come up the hill, historically the school bus stop there, they stopped in it. We've gotten them to move their route, so now they pull into the apartment complex, so they're not stopped there. But with something on our agenda tonight, if that stop isn't working effectively, cars can now back up, potentially close up to that hill, and if you've got somebody flying over there. So I'm right there with you. I'd love to see something done.
Never safety.
No.
So maybe we can bring it back as a discussion item for next month or an action item for next month if we can get enough information together to know what it would cost to do some of that stuff.
Do we need to hire a third party to conduct it, or do we have one of our officers that's certified and radar post up and do a survey of 50 or 100 free-floating vehicles?
Well, I know in the past we've had equipment that we've been able to put out that'll look at some traffic going by and take data on it. I don't know what's available still, or if we still have access.
yeah, we don't have that. We would do
like a
that
trailer
through a
and
third
a
party,
sign.
and I think that traffic, I can call tomorrow and find out the cost. I think that the cost of doing a traffic study to kind of determine what the average speeds and or have some of those recommendations we can do for fairly minimal cost if we want to do that, and then have that available when we come back next month to kind of look at and consider options. We can certainly
Yeah, I think that would be great.
certainly do that.
So put it on a discussion item after Laura gets some preliminary information
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
for the next CDC committee meeting. Okay.
If I could clarify, so Luke, what are you asking? What is your goal?
Make the actions, the majority of motorists, legal. I just feel the average vehicle is going 35 down there. If the limit's 25, it doesn't invite compliance from our residents.
So you're asking for the speed limit to be increased to 35?
Or a device to slow down the flow of traffic.
So when you say device, what is that? Do you know?
Could be a speed table, could be a sign there that tells the vehicle they're going, that flash that says, hey, your speed's 35 and a 25.
I think those work. Do you have any information about that, Chief?
So a couple of years ago, we asked about a mobile traffic unit that would actually display your speed. We passed on that several years ago so that other things in the city could be fixed. I'm happy to go out and get one of those for about $15,000. Luke and I talked the other day on the phone, and I let him know that if you look at 63rd Street between Rowe and Knoll, the speed limit's 30 on the Prairie Village side and the Mission side, and it passed by the council years and years ago. And I told him to go over and take some photos of that area, and so it's been done by this council before. The state says residential should be 25, but you have the right as a council to up it or lower it. I also let him know that working traffic, as I did for years, the people at the bottom of the hill are not going to want the speed limit to be raised. And we get requests to work traffic in that area. I also expressed to Luke that it's the officer's discretion to write a ticket or not. When I work traffic, everybody does 10 over through there. It doesn't make it safe. And if you're going even faster and you go up over the hill, if you're going westbound, there are kids in the apartment complexes. And as I discussed with Luke on the phone, I'm not on the same page at raising it. I would either leave it or lower it, but he is right that you do have to ride your brakes down the hill, or you are going to go 45 or 50. But I think from a safety standpoint, it's easier to leave it where it is, but I also think it would be wise for the city to look at is the speed limit that it's set right now.
So, after talking to Luke, he told me that he knows a couple of people who have gotten tickets down there, and that's fine, but I'm not in favor of raising the speed limit to keep people from getting the tickets. I'd rather they observe the law as much as they can, whatever the posted speed limit is. But I would like to make it safer. Safety is the main thing. Main concern of mine, I'm sure the rest of the council. So if there's something that we can do, whether it's putting in some kind of flashing lights on top of a speed limit sign that just get people's attention,
What about
it's being monitored?
I know we had this sign that we tried to, just the sign itself, and I know we had some issues where it was placed with the solar panel at that location, but is that an option to look at for 51st there, potentially?
I mean, we could look at that again. The message board trailers that we're looking at have the capability to do some of this, correct?
Basically all of it.
All of it, so.
Was the sign like substantially cheaper?
It was, but the message boards that we're replacing as an action item on your agenda have that capability and are smaller in size, so we can use them in that same way that we were using some of those mobile speed trailers before. So that could certainly be an option, and we can always look at adding the sign. I mean, that's something if we want to look at when we get some information back from the traffic engineers, we can look at something else as well. But I think we're upgrading our capability, or recommending that we upgrade our capability on another action item on tonight's agenda, so that we have that flexibility to show people their speeds and do that. Where we've either borrowed those trailers or we've been testing them as a part of consideration of a purchase before.
Are those trailers typically parked on the street or where
no
on the
sign
side? Right, so that's what I'm wondering. Well, because like in Roland Park, I've seen them parked on the street and you have to go around them. So I'm wondering where that would be parked, because we've got private property here and then a sidewalk and then houses. So there's just not much space in terms of like where there's an actual flat landing.
I don't think there's any sidewalk on the south side if you put it at the bottom.
Yeah, you can't technically block sidewalk with it, but they do have adjustable jacks on it, so they're not a real heavy piece of equipment, so, I mean, you might have to maybe trim some trees or something, but you might be able to figure some way out to get it on the side of the road where you'd still have that capability.
And again, you don't want that at the bottom of the hill.
No.
You want that out at the top of the hill before they come over. But the problem there is you have two hills.
Right.
Are we close to close enough to the school that we could get a school zone? I mean,
There is a school zone, actually.
but it's not for that stretch of road. It's that stretch of Lamar that the school zone is. Could we?
There's
talk
actually a
to-
school zone on 50, there's
51st?
a school zone on 51st. I drove it this afternoon just to verify, and right as school is
Between
out.
Lamar and Dearborn? Or it would technically be between Lamar and,
It is,
Outlook.
yes.
Yes.
so we could get some flashers for, the school zone and lower it at least during school hours.
Well, that's what I'm saying, there are flashers out there for the school zone on that.
Yeah, it's
on
already
that-
20 during the school time.
Unless I was absolutely blind
I
to
tried that
that.
like 20 times a day.
This afternoon.
I've never seen flashers, except for at the intersection of
Right.
where
that's-
Tom Garrity's house is
Yeah,
and then where you
exactly.
turn onto the school
So you
street.
suggest you move them maybe more west?
Get another set, closer to where the hill is.
Okay.
Because kids do take
Sure,
that route
yeah.
rather than the other one.
I mean, I walk it, it's scary, it's gotta be pretty scary for, young kid, for sure. That's really nerve wracking that the buses used to be.
Are you okay with this suggestion?
Yeah, I'm fine with it if the city wants to look into it, and then in a month or so, if they confirm the average vehicle's going faster than the city limit, they come with proposed solutions, to either slow traffic or raise the limit. Okay.
All right, thank you, Luke. Appreciate you
So
coming
can
out
I sit
today.
down?
All right, the next action item we have is the acceptance of the February 6, 2019 Community Development Committee minutes. Does anybody have any suggestions?
Additions or corrections to the amendments?
No.
Consent?
Consent.
All right.
They're not going forward, they're
They
just
don't go forward.
included, they're accepted as submitted.
That's correct. Thank you.
We'll get there.
We need a flashcard. Applause.
Okay, the next item we have is the lease renewal with Johnson County Wastewater for the community garden. Emily.
Yes, so I believe you all are familiar with the community garden that is down near Fox Ridge and Lamar. We've been leasing that space from Johnson County Wastewater since 2009 for community garden purposes. That lease was set to expire in March this month of 2019, 10-year lease, and so we reached out. We're in communication with them for other matters in any event, and they let us know that due to big plans for renovations in 2024, that they would be comfortable with an additional 4-year lease, so 1-year lease term with the addition to renew for 1 year for 4 times. So we have proceeded with that, and that's before you. So we don't anticipate anything changing about the operation of the community garden, but just that's what we think we can do with the partner we have right now.
Any questions?
I think we put that on
Yeah.
consent.
Since we're always at a wait list for the community gardens, have we ever looked at adding any more plots?
At one time we did. I mean, I think just in casual discussion or even additional locations, or and we could engage in that more seriously. I think recently I haven't heard much about expansion, but certainly could look into it.
Recommend we put it on consent.
Consent item? All right, thank you. Okay, next up is the super pool pass agreement. Laura Smith.
Yes, so I think as most of you know, for the last 10 years we have participated in the Super Pool Pass Agreement along with the cities of Fairway, Merriam, Leawood, Prairie Village, Roland Park, and Johnson County. And this is a program that offers residents and qualified non-residents the opportunity, if they purchase a annual membership to their home pool, they can also then purchase a Super Pool Pass, which gives them access to the aquatic facilities in those other communities. The thought being that we each have sort of unique amenities and features in our pools, and so we don't all have to have everything. We can offer this service more globally to the residents of Northeast Johnson County. We've had tremendous success with that. Typically what we do is we have an interlocal agreement each year that we consider and approve, and then we have an agreement that says at the times when we are hosting swim meets that patrons can also go to swim in these other facilities. This year there are actually 3 documents. As you know, the City of Merriam is in the process of constructing a new outdoor aquatic facility, and so they will not have a facility to include in the program for this season in 2019. So the traditional interlocal agreement has been revised to remove the City of Miriam's facilities, and then there is a second agreement, which I'm not sure why we didn't do it as one agreement, but we didn't, which then they want to still offer the pool pass to their residents to participate in the other facilities. So 2 interlocal agreements and then a swim meet letter of understanding are the 3 items that were included in the packet. And I think, as you can see, last year we had about 6,000 visits. You can see dramatically after we improved our pool in 2014 that the number of people who came to visit us has increased over time, and last year we generated almost $9,700 in revenue through the Super Pool Pass program.
Yeah, with Marion school down, we probably will do a little better.
We are hoping we might do a little better this year.
Any questions?
Take it to council.
Consent or not?
Consent would be good.
All right, next item is, thank you, Laura, the mowing services contract, Brent.
Thank
And
you.
Brent, I'd like to say congratulations for the photo
Oh,
in the
thank you.
Kansas Journal.
Didn't even know about that.
Did you get the fold out?
Yeah.
That's my first one.
That's a rough start.
It's all right. So staff is recommending the approval for the mowing service contract with Kansas Land Management in the amount of $68,760. Since 2010, the city has decided to contract out the mowing service. They realize there's cost savings contracting it out, not having the summer staff involved, the capital equipment expenditures. It is a pretty good cost savings. It also frees up public works staff for pothole repair, stormwater maintenance, street sweeping, and just more core public works activities. And as you all know, we're gonna have plenty of potholes to fix this year. So there's usually about 60 plus acres of green space, city-owned lots, parks, the center island of cul-de-sacs, guardrails, right-of-ways. The parks are usually they are mowed every week on a weekly basis. Right-of-ways are a monthly basis, and there's some bi-weekly stuff in there. So it's a big cost saving to the city, and we get a pretty good product with KLM. It's a 3-year contract with an option for a 4th year to going into 2024, and there's a 3% annual increase every year with the contract. So, yeah.
I have questions.
Absolutely.
I noticed that their price is like 27%, a little better than that, 27% higher than one of the other bidders, which seemed like an excessive amount over. And I did read where you liked their equipment and the number of staff, whatever, but I didn't see any numbers from the other company. Do they not have?
They did
people
have
in the equipment.
They did. KLM almost has, I'd say, 75% more equipment than the other ones that bid on it, that were the lower bidders. They've got, I know you read through it, I think it's 20 72-inch mower grasshoppers and 10 additional John Deeres. The other companies, when we went through it, I mean, they got like 3 to 4 72-inch mowers, you know, a couple trimmers. And we tried, I think...
How many of those big mowers that we Kansas have running at one time? They're not going to have all 20 of them over here in Michigan.
They'll have probably at least 10 to 12.
Really?
Yeah, they knock it out in one day usually. And then, you know, sometimes it's a day and a half when they get mowing right-of-ways once a month. But we tried it in 2014 with going with a smaller company, and staff time for about half the summer was mowing grass. Because it got out of control with rains and they couldn't keep up with it. And then we got into fighting over bills and, you know, what they're charging us for and what we did. So we tried going with the lower bidder and, you know, with a smaller company, and it ended up just costing us a ton of time through the year. So that's kind of why we're wanting to stick with KLM. They got a bigger operation and they can knock it out, you know, and if it rains for 3 days, they can come in on a Saturday and knock out the whole city and get everything caught up.
Yeah. You might want to just tell them that 9 a.m. would be a better time to do that park next to my house, rather than 8 or 7:30. I'm just saying.
You know the ordinance.
when you're hot tubbing, Todd.
No, but I'm sleeping and stuff like that. No, I'm just kidding, they do fine.
Okay.
Brent,
But I was just curious why the big difference.
Go ahead.
I had brought up with Laura, just to make sure the countryside has an agreement,
Yes.
and that would be renewed again this year.
It is, and I forget who I got the email from, but I was waiting until all this went through, until I
That's
sent them
great,
the
yeah.
costs and all that stuff,
Yeah.
so I'm aware of that, and that's all in there, and you're good to go, so.
Thank you.
And then I know with Kalen, there might have been a couple issues last year, we kind of got dialed in, but the guy that had been doing it for us for almost 6 years retired. They kind of ran the whole mission crew, so last year we kind of got it dialed back in, you know, they were missing a few spots, but they're all on the same page now, we got it moving in the right direction, so.
Kristin?
Yes.
Hey, Brent, I had a question looking at the RFP bid table
Yes.
on, well, it's just, you guys can find it. And it said for services rendered between April 2019 and November 2021. And it's a one-year contract. And so I asked Laura just to double check, and she thought it was just maybe a typo. And so my thought was, is this the same bid table that went out to all, if it is a typo, is this the same bid sheet that went out to all the companies? And could say that top one that bid for almost double think that potentially they were putting out a bid for
That's
a 2-year service?
just a typo.
Just a typo.
It was in the contract documents that
Okay.
it was a 3-year with an option for, so
Okay.
that's just something I missed on that.
Cool.
And if you look through everybody's contract stuff, they all realized that it was a 3-year contract. And I spoke with everybody ahead of receiving bids and discussed the contract and the additional 4th year that was available.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks for catching that, though.
Yeah, no worries. It's on the True Green one too. So heads
Yeah,
up.
so
So I
I
won't
missed
bug
it.
you for the next.
So, yeah, I missed that one, so.
I recommend that we move to council.
All right, great, thanks, Brent.
Is that yes, consensus?
Yes,
Okay.
that's,
All right,
Okay,
now
here.
we have Brent again on the church management contract.
So, we're recommending the approval of the turf maintenance and chemical application with True Green for the amount of $12,429. And prior to this year's contract, it was all combined together with the mowing service contract. Haven't been happy with how it's been turning out. I thought we'd get a better product of going with somebody that just does chemical applications and start getting some of these parks and green spaces looking a little better. We added another application to the parks, city-owned lots, and some of our nicer green spaces just to try to get these weeds under control and give grass a chance to start growing again and get this stuff looking a little better. We also added quite a few properties, not a giant expense, but just for reference, we used to fertilize or treat about 22 acres. It's up to about 37 now, just trying to get everything, not just a giant weed field around town. Not a huge cost increase. In 2014, we were right around $10,000 for just 22 acres, so a couple $1,000 increase for another 15 acres of treatment and adding another application through the year. So we're around 40 acres now with a 4 application process on most of the stuff. And we've added some stuff, Legacy Park, farmers markets come up, you know, we're just trying to get that stuff looking a little better where there's high traffic areas. A lot of it's weed control. As I spoke with some of these chemical application guys, if you don't have irrigation, about the best practice is just trying to manage the weeds. If you can't water it on a consistent basis, the fertilizers that help the grass grow and stuff, if you put it down, don't have the water, it just kind of burns up the grass. So we're just trying to keep the weeds under control and, you know, give the grass a better shot at growing in the springtime.
Hey, Brent,
Yes.
can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
If we come to a conclusion on a dog park, will that particular type of chemical be different than what's in the rest of the parks?
Probably. So, I mean, when we go down that road and we do get to a dog park at some point, I mean, I think it'd be a whole different chemical application when you're dealing with people's pets. And been to some of the meetings on dog parks. I mean, a lot of it is in the springtime shutting the dog park down for 3 weeks and laying sod and trying to replace it, and then, you know, give it some time to root up, and then, you know, you just do that almost on a yearly basis because they're so hard on the grass. So
You don't need as much fertilizer.
well, we're supposed to pick it up. Plenty of bags.
Are we currently using the same products in the parks and all the other
Yes.
areas?
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have any concerns about the materials used?
No, haven't any, I mean, they're all licensed and, you know, it's the same chemicals basically. I've talked to some other cities that use True Green. It's, you know, it's all the same kind. I mean, I'm not a chemical guy by any means, but they haven't had any issues with any of the stuff, so they're all trained and certified. So I think it's a good deal, and hopefully we can get our parks and some of these green spaces just looking a little better and get some grass growing.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think so too.
So hopefully it works out good, so.
So, but my understanding is like dandelions, you would need to put that application on last fall, is that,
Well,
you might not see immediate.
so we did put, yeah, so we did put that down, but, you know, we're adding an extra treatment in there. As soon as this goes through in 2 weeks, they're gonna start with the first application, pre-emergent, and hopefully, we can stop the dandelions from starting, and, you know, there's some stuff in the contract, you know, if it shows up again, they gotta come back and treat again, so. I think we'll get a better product this year.
Why do you think there's such a difference between these two bids?
True Green is nationwide, like you guys all know, so they are buying that chemical for all their companies around the United States, so they're just they get the lowest cost out of anybody. Because I asked them about that to Kevin I was talking with, I mean, they just buy it for all their companies at, you know, one time, and they just get the cheapest stuff, I mean.
All right, any other questions?
Consent?
Let's go
Second.
second.
All right, Brent, now you're up again with the Broadmoor Construction Inspection Services. No parking, public works equipment.
Nope, right.
We're good.
Right.
Got a billy goat there.
Yeah, we're fencing it in down there, public workshop. So this is a capital equipment purchase for public works this year. We've got a dump truck that's getting replaced, 2 F-450s, one's a crew cab, one's a super cab. One is a flatbed we use for mainly asphalt events. Let's see. Yeah, we use it most of the time for asphalt. I mean, it tows a roller trailer around. We can keep all our tack oil on it. We haul pallets with it whenever we're doing sod and stuff like that. So we try to keep one flatbed around. It usually tows a skid steer when we're working on street patches. The 450 Super Cab is replacing 018, which is a plow truck. So we're switching that out. All these trucks are 3 years past the 10-year replacement. I know, I'm not for sure on my years. I know 2008, 2009 is kind of when everything got seized up for a little while with the economy, and we kind of held on to everything we had, so we're trying to get everything kind of caught back up on that 10-year replacement list. And with the dump truck also, we've noticed not always going with the cheapest one is the best. We've had big expenses with the internationals we own, all 3 of them. They've all had heads put on them. 397 that we're replacing this year has almost $20,000 worth of repairs in the last 5 years. So that's kind of why we decided to go with the Kentworth. Talked to Olathe, that's all they're running now. Johnson County, I think, went to Kenworth, and then talked to some of our service guys. They've all gone to Kenworth trucks. It's a bigger horsepower truck, so you're not running into that overheating problem we have sometimes with these smaller engines. It also has a better extended warranty, so this truck's almost covered 6 years completely out the gate with engine, after treatment, which is that exhaust clean system that everybody's having problems with. So anytime you can extend the warranty out on that stuff, it's a good deal, because you usually run into some issues, and I don't care what you buy, skid steers, trucks, we've had problems with them all, so they just haven't quite dialed it in. And then, let's see, so the Kenworth truck itself is $93,178. To outfit the truck with American equipment is $62,474. And the outfitting is spreader, bed, tarp, strobes, plow, hydraulic system, so everything that it takes to make that truck, to plow roads and do everything we use it for asphalt in the summertime hauling. The F-450s, like I said before, the Super Cab is going to be outfitted with a stainless steel bed, plow, spreader, strobes, and we're going with a little better strobe package this year, trying to get these trucks lit up a little better for when they're working in traffic. So they've upgraded some lights, and they'll be nice looking trucks.
Let's see, move it.
Oh, I'm still going.
Oh, you still?
And we'll bounce around. Well, we can go.
Yeah, we're going to
We were talking about.
Take away again, Brent.
I knew I should have. Should have went for it. On to the next one. But we probably need to talk about this one. So we've got 2 message boards at the shop we're replacing this year. And as we were talking before with 51st Street, the new ones, the reason why the cost is so much different to replace with the exactly what we have now is the $34,000. But the new ones, I found out, they're a little smaller size, but they come with radar capability. They'll tell you your speed and slow down like we were talking about. They can also do average speed on a road now. They can do traffic counts. I'm not for sure totally the software on that yet, but it has that ability. And they're also tied in with Verizon now, so I can program them from my computer in my office now, so you don't have to take the hand control. So if you need to make changes or let you know if the batteries are dead, you need to bring it back and charge it. So there's a lot more functions than us just using them. When something goes bad or a street project, we can use them maybe 3 or 4 months out of here this time instead of just a month or something. So I think it's a good deal for what you're getting, and we'll have more abilities with them with the speeds and traffic counts and radar enforcement and all that stuff gets tracked and data. So that's why we're trying to upgrade them and a little bit out of the budget of, I think it's basically $3 grand over budget, but you're getting so much more with them. So, and then the Billy Goat, just got a couple quotes on this one. They're right there in line. It's $3,600, and that's just our leaf vac truck that we use for cleaning out inlets, parks. We started kind of mowing everything into a pile this year and picking up what we can instead of mulching everything in. So just replacing that. It's kind of on its, I think it's about 10 to 12 years old. So we're coming in, I think, 31,000 under budget. Yes. And we're recommending that goes back into the equipment replacement fund. And then I'm sure you all know we surplus everything and auction off on Purple Wave now, which we've been doing real well with. So we're recommending all that money that we get back from the auction goes back into the capital equipment fund for next year's purchases, so we're not dipping into other funds. So, but we've done real well with Purple Wave. I mean, I don't think we've lost money on anything that we've sold in the last, I think 3 years we've used it, so it's been a good thing.
I have a question for you. Who does the outfitting on the trucks?
American Equipment.
American Equipment.
And they do almost every city, like, around here, they outfit all their trucks now. We had some stuff at NAPI before, but they've gone more to KCP&L and Capital Electric and doing those big fleet outfits for power line trucks and stuff like that. So they're not really working on the municipality side anymore. Krantz is another operation in town that does it, and I did get some quotes from them, and they were just a slight bit higher. And as I talked to Ford and MHC, none of them had anything good to say about Krantz and lead time and dragging stuff out. So, and I mean, they don't make any money where you send that truck to get outfitted. So, and we've always had good luck. They get us ahead of the line of everybody else. If a truck breaks down in a snowstorm, they move us up the line. They've got all the parts for the plows we run. So, it's a good operation.
So you ready now?
What?
Are you ready now?
Pull the trigger.
I do want to just say, I have to compliment Brent for the time and the effort that he's put into this process. Very thorough, really looking at opportunities to, maximize the dollars that we're spending. So I appreciated all of his work on that.
I also want to add that, we all drive around at different times, but, being retired now, I'm out during the day. Nothing pleases me more to see Jay, who's been on that force for years, working like, gotta go get it, you can't talk. I mean, they are constantly working, and they do a great job.
I appreciate
It's
that.
amazing.
Thank you.
And I know some other people in other cities that have been jealous of Mission snow removal this winter too. So we'll knock on wood that we're done, but
it was an expensive year, but
as well.
they did a great job, and we had some new guys. It was a good training year to get them, a taste. I mean, to be honest, this is probably the worst winter I've been through since I've been here. Maybe not like, storms where we got 14 or 15 inches, but just consistency with, heavy snow and it coming every week. So.
Weekend.
It always snows on the weekend. I mean, it's been doing that for 10 years.
So. All right, anything else for Brent?
Is that consent or
Let's
not?
say non-consent.
A non-consent.
Non-consent. All right, now Broadmoor Construction Inspection Services.
Okay, you guys all know about this project, so it's moving along. We contacted our on-call engineers, GBA, to do the inspection services on Broadmoor. Olson designed it, so we try to use our other on-call engineers, so there's not the same companies inspecting the job they designed, so there's no issues there. The cost is not to exceed $139,399.70. The contract is for, or the task order is for a 16-week construction period on Broadmoor, and that's the estimated time frame in the contract documents to do sidewalks, stormwater, full depth street reconstruction. Where you run into the extra 3 weeks that's in there that is just kind of contingency if it drags out is the traffic signal. They are almost an 18 to 20 week lead time once the contract's signed to order it. And we just had a pre-bid meeting. I mean, every contractor brought it up that that's the way it is. So, I mean, you got to order it day one, and if there's any kind of hiccup, it gives our inspector the ability to come back out, you know, because you can't, in the contract, the new one's got to be up, installed, and ready to go before the old one comes down. So you don't have any issues there. So there could be some lead time, but if it all works out, we're only getting billed for the hours we use them. So, and in this too, there's the testing, the asphalt testing, the air test for the concrete, inspection services. I mean, they're out there watching them the whole time. And I'm sure all of you know, I mean, you almost got to have somebody watching a contractor, 24/7 now, just to make sure you're getting what you're paying for. So it's a great service. We get a book back with everything, documents of what they did, the test results. So we have everything, and they also come back out on the 2-year maintenance bond. Look over everything and make sure the contractor replaces, curb to crack, sidewalk to cracked, a 2-year period, problems with the road. So it's great to have them on board for that. So we're asking for approval for GBA for the inspection services, and this is also part of the CARS funding, so there's a 50% match on the inspection services from the county.
Will they be able to do anything with those manhole covers in the middle of that?
I'm working on that right now.
About a 3-foot crater in the street.
So we just had the pre-construction meeting. I think McEnany's probably going to be the sub on the job for doing the paving itself. And they were told in the pre-construction meeting that we're going to have to touch base with AT&T and make sure those manholes get fixed. And I reached out to them 2 days ago because we had one pop out on a driver and tried to push on them a little harder, that, we got to get these fixed. It just can't happen. I mean,
John had been working with them.
yes.
Or trying to, I believe.
Yes.
So the people that drive through it, it's killing your car alignment, and anyone that's driven through it before goes around it, and then I've seen a bunch of people almost swerving into the other oncoming traffic.
And I know it's a huge issue, and AT&T is super hard to get somebody out there.
There's got to be something we can do.
Well, as I recall, those are a unique size, right? And
They're extra large.
But why couldn't they fill some extra stuff on top of it, possibly, or? I mean, I've seen that on other manhole covers before, where they add some filling on the top of it or something.
Slap another cover on top.
Whatever.
Yeah, that'd work.
It's really bad too that you're exiting the city and that's what you're exposed to.
So we will have them fixed on this project. I can guarantee that. So it just got to push on them.
Cool, that's great.
And then we'll get it fixed. So, I mean.
Painted my phone pole.
Yeah, really.
Wait till you see the new one.
You said how long is the build-out time on a stoplight?
18 to 21 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a while.
So the way they.
Way faster than that for the one on Johnson Drive.
Mm-hmm.
Sure it did.
No, it didn't.
Really?
No, it didn't.
Calm down, Nick.
There's no way that took 6 months.
So, move it to council, regular.
Do you want to do consent or not?
Non-consent.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Next again.
Yeah, no, it's actually,
Okay.
you're up.
Well, no, don't go too far, because you have all the details on this, if anybody has any questions. So,
I will sit right here.
we're just bringing back, kind of for council review and confirmation, final cost for removal and disposal limbs following the January storm. I know the council had originally authorized up to $40,000. That was based on estimates that the contractors had provided us before anybody had anything set out at the curb. And then once items were set out at the curb and they started working their way through the city, we just had a lot more debris than originally anticipated and couldn't really stop in the middle and say, oops, wait, just a minute, we've spent $40,000. So they did complete the limb pickup last week. That was slowed down because of the continued weather events that we kept having, but I think they are through the city. I think we picked up, they missed very few. So I think that process has been really, really good. Just as a kind of point of comparison, in speaking with Prairie Village about a week and a half ago, they were about 2/3 of the way through their city. They anticipate spending about $125,000 to complete theirs. Roland Park has wrapped theirs up. They've spent about $33,000, and Fairway is finished, and they spent about $125,000 in their city as well. So I feel like our costs.
Makes me feel better.
Well, yeah. It's always good to kind of know where we fall in line with that. So we would just be looking really for council, again, confirmation of those final expenses.
I'd like to say I really appreciate the fact that the city went forward and did that for our residents. I think it was outstanding.
I do too. I think it was important, very important. So.
Well, if I could just add a couple things from like the
Yeah.
call side, I mean, I just think it was so, I mean, obviously, we were the lucky one that got to say, yes, we're doing that for you, so congrats, you know. But just in the interactions with the residents, many, you know, we had not spoken to before, you know, a number of, I would call them little old ladies calling on the phone and asking, and then of course we had the volunteers who offered to help. And so I think it was just one of those neighbors kind of thing, and then also just a chance for interaction with the city for residents that we've never had reason to speak to before. And it was the first time we've kind of called out to say, hey, remember to help your neighbor if you see, you know, they're not. So just a lot of, you know, communication, which I thought was just really unique and notable to say publicly. And so to everyone, and also just generally the residents, I think, were very patient with us through the winter weather. So yeah.
And shout out to Public Works for, I don't know how many times I drove by and Public Works crews were helping people drag stuff to the street or helping break things down. That was huge.
Thank you. Way good.
Consent on. All right, thank you, Laura. We have discussion items are next. The 51st Street and Lamar traffic light repairs. Brent.
So, I'm sure some of you are aware, the 51st traffic signal on Lamar has been on recall mode for the last 6 months. It's a KCP&L traffic signal. We lease it from them. We've tried cutting loops in twice. The pavement can't handle them anymore. The road base isn't there, and they just keep pushing up through and breaking. And when you cut in new loops, when they fail like that, it's on the city's expense. Through KCP&L, is the roads failing, is how they look at it. So we're recommending to add cameras to the traffic signal for detection. So it gives me the ability to go in there and mill out whatever I need to do, fix potholes. Because when loops are cut in, if I go fix a pothole at that intersection, I mill those loops out every time. And then you're cutting them back in, and it's a high expense. Don't have the exact dollars on that. No one would really give you that estimate until you get the contractor out there to do it, but it's not a cheap process. And then adding the camera system, I mean, it gives you the ability to restripe it, I mean, mill it wherever you need it to, and the patching ability, just to keep that road looking good at that intersection. And we'll be talking about next month, but we've got a Lamar project coming, so if we can get all this kind of stuff up to snuff, where that road project will look good through there and traffic will move freely, it will really help out. The loops are, right now, $214 a month cost. To add the camera system is an additional $855 a month. Over the year, it's about a $10,000 increase in our traffic signal budget, which is a $400,000 budget every year for our traffic signals and the ones we lease from KCP&L. Until we get through that road with a full-depth reconstruction project and we acquire that traffic signal for the city and buy it out like we have some of these other ones, I think it's a good option I receive 3 to 4 phone calls a week right now on people waiting at that traffic signal at night. I see it when I'm out snow plowing with the guys. You just sit there and wait on it. It'd be a good thing. I mean, I know it's a high cost, but I think it solves some problems with some phone calls. And since we got some stuff coming up on Lamar, we can just get the traffic moving through there right, especially since it's a school zone. I think it's a good idea right now until we can figure out something better. Once we buy out that traffic signal and do a project through there, you know, we'll acquire all that and we'll go to the radar system and we'll have an updated traffic signal. But for right now, I think it's a good option for the city. I mean, not a low cost, but not much maintenance.
Can you explain to a layperson what a loop is?
So, yeah, sorry about that. So
I was
loops,
confused by this too, but Laura already explained it to me.
so there's basically 3 now. The first and the oldest is traffic loops, and they cut sensors into the pavement.
Right.
And that's where you see those silicone or caulk lines where they cut them in.
Right.
And those are sensors that detect your car sitting there. And if they break or anything, there's no way to repair them, so they just have to cut new lines in the pavement, put in new loops, hook them into the traffic signal cabinet, which isn't cheap. And then you're also cutting into the road base because they get them all the way to the bottom of the pavement. So you're getting into the subgrade, and you know, as that caulk or silicone deteriorates, you're getting water under the road base. So that's why everybody went to cameras. That was the 2nd generation, and KCP&L hasn't made it to radar yet. But all the stuff we're installing, like Woodson, Lamar, the one at Broadmoor, are all radar detected now, which has a longer shelf life. And you know, their camera lenses don't get dirty, nothing like that. So it was loops 20 years ago, and they're still using them today. Then cameras, and now we're on the radar system. So it's the cameras are the 2nd line, but KCP&L, when I discussed it with them, they're not even to radar yet on their traffic signals. So it's just the cities that are buying their stuff out and putting in their own stuff is upgrading to the radar system, which is the latest and greatest. But cameras are still good. I mean, they've used them for a long time, and if you look at traffic signals all over town, KCP&L stuff, you'll see cameras on most of them. So it's a great added feature. So I'd like to, if we can move it and talk about it.
And what you find is when you're on recall, people get frustrated and they may just, you know, they get very impatient at those intersections. And so that's one we were talking about earlier this evening, and so I think that's one where we want to make sure we're trying to get traffic through as efficiently as we can.
So if it's on recall, it just puts itself on a timer?
Yeah, it's on a timer. So you wait,
cycle
regardless of
there
who's
for-
sitting where, you're gonna wait through every cycle of
And we
the
still
light.
have to pay the $215 a month for the loops even though they don't work?
No, it's actually not an additional. We go from 215 to
So
855, yeah.
So like right now, if they're not working, are we still paying KCP?
We are.
They're blaming us for our street.
Turn them off.
And that is a school zone, and if you've ever been through there, it's starting to deteriorate pretty bad. So it'll give us the ability, you know, to go in there and mill when we need to, and not just worry about hitting loops all the time. So we can get that street up to a little better condition.
Yeah, those traffic lights are kind of bad. I mean, even to push it, to go up across the street as a pedestrian, their buttons are gone.
So this is a discussion item or?
Yes.
Yes.
So if you're interested in that, we would bring back, I don't know if we actually have to revise the contract with KCP&L, we bring it back as an action item next.
We do not.
There you go. Hey Brent, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So the CARS project is a mill and overlay project, so that's why we wouldn't go into replacing the loops that exist, correct? So when we mill and overlay Lamar, the.
Are you talking about this year?
Yes, the Lamar project.
So that is not a CARS project.
We tried to make it a CARS project.
Safe routes to school, yeah.
Safer, yes.
Okay. Smack?
No.
Okay.
You only get one
I
CARS
will
project.
get the acronyms at some point in my life.
Hey, I'm still
Okay,
learning
so
too.
we're replacing Lamar, but it's mill and overlay.
No, it's not. We're going UBAS treatment.
To seal treatment.
It's a seal treatment. So
Okay.
there's full depth, we'll talk about it next month. But
Okay.
it's a lot of full depth patching, like the cracks and adjusting the manholes. And then there's a thin, I wouldn't even, it's like a micro mill, and then you come back with a surface treatment and restriping.
Okay. So full depth isn't happening at that point, so that's why we wouldn't go and
Yes.
look at potentially putting in full, the
Yeah.
old process.
It's basically a surface treatment, it's just the top of the line of the surface treatments.
Will we take out those old ones and just, because we're doing work there at that time?
The old
Loops.
The old loops?
So when you go in there to patch, they just mill up. I mean, it's just like it's thinner than a cable line. So
Is it, but I thought it's what looked like, kind of like an old railroad track, kind of, you
It
can't
does,
see
but
the-
that's just the silicone on top.
Okay.
So the wires are under, so when you come through and patch, that just comes
Okay.
up the middle edge, so.
I've learned a lot from this particular item. Yes. This is
Well, you never want to know, right?
yes, there is.
She needs a new acronym.
There you go. Send another one.
But I really appreciate you looking for grants.
There you go. I am a grant writer, so there you go.
I'm all about it too, so it just didn't work out this year.
Next time, next year.
Yes.
Great.
Is there any more discussion?
Good job, brother.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Okay, the next discussion item is Broadmoor, right-of-way.
I'm ready.
Easement acquisition process update.
Yes, so the flip side, now that inspection's underway, in order to do the project for the Broadmoor reconstruction between Martway and Johnson Drive, as designed, we need to acquire some temporary easements, permanent sidewalk easements, and some additional right-of-way. As you know, we've tried to minimize the amount of space we've needed in most cases. We have an initial estimate after following appraisal reports coming back to the city. We are still in contact with the property owners. There are 11 tracks included in the project that will need contact from us in some fashion. We've given kind of a heads up that we're coming, and Brent and I have met with everybody down there, but we'll need to kind of seal the deal, and then we'll come back to you with the final agreements and terms.
Okay, thank you very much. And the last discussion item we have this evening is the Hodges planters update. Laura?
Yes, so the working group, we've established a working group. We've got 7 residents from the area who have volunteered to work with us on looking at reviewing and discussing alternatives for the planters along Hodges. And the group will have their first meeting next Thursday at 5:30 here at City Hall. So we met with the traffic engineer this afternoon. We'll have probably 4 to 6 different alternatives that we'll kind of just start discussing to get some feedback with the group, but looking forward to getting that conversation back up and rolling.
Do you expect it to be contentious?
Great expectation.
Not real.
Why would you think it'd be contentious?
Nick, did you miss the last meeting?
I'm glad we had good feedback and people wanting to participate.
That's right. And we've got good representation, I think, from all of the streets spread throughout the area, so we'll have kind of different perspectives.
Do we have a time frame for how long this will last until somebody has to make a decision?
No, probably have a better idea after next week's meeting, I would think. We'll kind of try to set, that's what the, Dave Menninga and I were talking about today. Once we kind of see where we are, then we'll come back with a timeline. Because I know they're anxious too, to kind of know when this will wrap up.
You're not expecting us to be?
No.
Any other discussion on that? All right. The last item we have this evening is department updates. Laura?
I do just have quickly, Emily, you can pass these out for me. Emily and I attended a luncheon, this one, today that was hosted by KCP&L on their renewable energy, well, 2 prongs. The one we're most interested in is the renewable energy piece that they are ready to now offer after having a renewable energy rider tariff approved in 2018 by the KCC. Basically what this does is it would give entities who have an average monthly peak demand of greater than 200 kilowatt hours a month the opportunity to sign up and subscribe or participate in their program to replace anywhere between 1 to 100% of your usage with renewable energy.
It's a credit system.
Yes. So I don't know whether we qualify, so it's not open to everyone. You're going to have to meet a minimum threshold in order to participate. We have made the request of our customer service rep at KCP&L when we got back from the meeting today to see where we are in that, because this program, when it opened up on the Missouri side, filled up very quickly. And the question was asked at the luncheon today, how how long before you think the program would be at its capacity. So they're looking for subscribers or commitments that would generate anywhere between 100, so a minimum of 100 megawatts up to 200 megawatts of power. If they get enough subscribers and commitments through this process, then they will proceed with construction of the wind farm. And so you would be 18 months out before a wind farm would come online that would essentially provide the credits to this program.
Is this municipality-wide, your capacity, or is it
Yes,
neighborhood
so
by
it's
neighborhood?
all, no, it's commercial
Yeah,
accounts, and it would be metered accounts. So one of the things, I don't know if I don't think our streetlights are metered currently. Not all of them.
Not
We may
all of
have some. Anyway, KCP&L is collecting that data, and we can aggregate all of our accounts. So we would have, whatever we have that's metered, facilities, streetlights, traffic signals, any of those things would be eligible. So if you have anything that's not on a meter, that would not be eligible to be considered as a part of this program. The other thing that was passed around is a participation agreement. So they gave us, it was funny, they were rationing their handouts today at the luncheon, so we only got, I had to identify who was sitting next to me and where we were the same organization. So there's a participation agreement which is live. This is ready to be considered by the council. Essentially what this program does, it's not a guaranteed cost savings. They're basically replacing, currently on our bills we have an ECA charge, and that would be replaced with an RPC charge, a renewable participation charge. And you know, some of the things we would have to look at, if we qualify, we would need to look at and consider then how much we would purchase. Previously, these agreements were offered on a 20-year basis. They're now offering them on a 5, 10, 15, or 20-year basis. If you don't, you pay a higher charge if you don't commit to the 20-year program, but it's I think very incremental amount. I'm still processing a lot of this. I'm happy to try to answer any questions or thoughts that we have. The question is, they think that they don't know how quickly this will go in this program, and so it's going to be basically a first come, first serve for anybody who wants to sign up until they hit that 100 or up to 200 megawatt capacity that they're looking to fill.
Do you have a general idea of how many megawatts we use currently?
I don't.
And Laura, with that request that you made to see if we qualify, I had a comment and a question. So I know that Roland Park has qualified, so I'm crossing my fingers that we will also qualify. And with that request, did you request the city's specific pricing numbers? I think those are also available, so they can tell if there will be a cost savings and what it would be. My understanding is they can provide us with that information.
Okay, we didn't, because they didn't indicate today that that was available.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because Roland Park City Administrator today specifically asked the question about whether or not smaller cities could join together and take advantage of the program, and was essentially told not at this time. So that
I could be wrong, but my understanding is that they got their numbers.
good. Yeah, I thought it was that's interesting because that was the specific question.
Maybe they thought you could get better rate or something if you group together. That might be the question.
So we can certainly get that tracked down as quickly as we possibly can. Again, you won't pay more than what you pay now, but it's not a guaranteed cost savings. And that there was some question and conversation today at the luncheon about. I don't know that there's a risk. If you go in selling it as cost savings, you're presenting, you're probably identifying some risk. You can't guarantee that.
But so it's at worst cost neutral?
Yes.
So is that something that council even needs to approve then, or can staff just decide to do it?
I think that's really up to you. I think, looking at the term, I think it's something that probably I would at least like the council to discuss a little bit further in looking at whether we want to participate in that, but I do think we need to move. If we're interested, we do need to move pretty quickly on that.
I think it's a great thing to look into. I would probably be in favor of potentially a little bit shorter term though, because I have a feeling 10 years from now there's going to be some drastically different technologies out there, different ways of getting power. So maybe not a 20-year term?
But you could go as low as 5.
Yeah.
Right.
Could
Yeah,
just
something like
possibly-
5 or 10 years, I think
Yeah.
that's probably great to look into.
Okay.
Did they tell you where the wind farm would be located, where they established one?
Iowa.
What part?
No.
They
There's
have
applicants
a
still
or a
looking
couple
for
sites,
spots.
yeah.
Yeah, I think they're looking, they're still shopping.
Location yet to be
Yes,
determined.
Yeah.
but the windmills don't
shopping.
return.
And then, I guess my other question is, how quickly it could come back to us, you know, with all the information we would need for a vote, because I know that the companion program that they did, and I always get Westar and Other Merge, I get them confused, but the other component subscribed super, super quickly. That's the one that K-State and KU and everyone is in, so I would hate to see us, you know, miss the
Yeah.
window.
I think it's a great thing to go after.
And so if we can bring it, if we can get the information back and put it on this new business on the 20th of this month, is
That'd
that?
be great.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
Are there any costs, equipment or other stuff we have to mess with?
No. No, I think we just kind of need to get our heads around, I mean, the things that will drive probably our decisions about how much, whether we want to go for, you know, what percentage of usage, current usage that we would try to replace. We talked about energy audit of at least the community center. Obviously, if we're doing energy audit and then we take some steps to reduce that, likely by the time if we were to subscribe and the wind farm would come online, and then our energy usage would be different. So some of those things we'll want to, you know, kind of play into that decision. So we may want to be a little bit conservative on that front, I think. But we'll have a better idea once I see what our numbers are. I just can't really speak intelligently to that at this point. And it's not huge savings. I mean, it's really, but it's,
mostly cost neutral.
yes, but I think it's a commitment to.
Projected non-reliance on
Yeah.
traditional electricity.
Yes.
And I think there are a lot of cities, other cities interested in moving on this now, so I think that'll make it really, you know, be really great if a lot of us can make an impact together.
This conference was only focused on this, right?
The other topic that they discussed today was just their clean charging network, so the electric charging stations for electric vehicles. And they will send a copy of the full PowerPoint presentation, which we can send out to you. I think it was, I have a copy that Councilmember Flora had provided, and it did not change. It didn't look like from what they presented today, so.
As we move forward, Laura, could we keep the Sustainability Commission in the loop on this too?
We still have an appointment to set up with KCPL about the outage issue.
Yes.
Because there was another, what was going on with the light at 53rd and Larsenite? It was out.
They're fixing it right now.
Yeah, I don't know what
I
happened.
mean, I don't know what happened. I mean, it went into recall mode, so I called K-State, they were out there when I drove up here. I mean, power surge or something, they usually just have to reset it. And come back
Hold
online.
on.
Yes, Mayor?
All right, so what you're saying is, we wouldn't pay more for the power, but you could get locked into a rate for X number of years, and there could be cheaper alternatives that come out. So it could cost you money.
Right, or if we
I
have.
mean, that's,
If you did the 20 years.
right,
Yes, if you did the 20
that's the
year,
offset,
yes.
is,
Yes,
they're
the question-
guaranteeing you a rate, it's the renewable energy, and the cost will be locked in, but you don't know what costs are gonna happen in the future.
But on the sustainability side, it's my understanding is it's these commitments that are fueling the creation of the wind farm. So there are some non-revenue-based benefits as well. I think we should consider looking at the term limit.
So I mean, there's some other pieces of information. There's apparently someone was talking today about this ECA charge, and that there's a 10-year history that's available that we can kind of look and see the fluctuation in the ECA charge. And so there's just a lot of data. I think that we, as we sat and listened today, identified that we can go kind of pull and look at what that might be. And they do have some models. It looked like, I mean, they shared some examples of some models with the kind of the baseline customer and then a larger customer. So, I mean, in this FAQ, it talks about, is there a calculator next to last on the back page? So no, there's not one where we can go out and calculate that ourselves, but I think we can look to either our customer solutions manager for this renewables team.
Yeah,
To
I
help
think
us
they
identify
gave that
this.
number.
Yep.
All right, anything else? Okay, that concludes the community development committee.
Good job.
All right, well, we can go ahead and call order the Wednesday, March 6th Finance and Administration Committee. We've got a few action items tonight. First up is the acceptance of the February 6th committee meeting minutes. Does anybody have any kind of corrections they want to suggest? If not, I think we can go ahead and take those as accepted. Accept those as printed.
See, we need the flashcard.
Next up, next up, we have an item to review some computer replacements. I think Mr. Self has some updates for us on that.
Certainly not as romantic as wind power, but I'll do what I can. Good evening. So in the spring of 2018, the City of Mission contracted with Johnson County Department of Technology and Innovation, DTI, to do a deep dive into our computer inventory. This inventory would include not only system or machine names, but IP addresses. One of the byproducts that came from that inventory was we realized that over half of the current devices that we have are over 5 years old. 5 years is kind of the industry standard that's recognized as the end of life for a computer, be it a laptop or a desktop. After a fairly exhaustive process, we developed a configuration for laptops and desktop computers, sent out proposals for bids for not only the purchase of these devices, but for the installation of. We received 3 bids, and then after careful deliberation, sort of arrived at Sumner 1 as being the best fit for our city. I'll try to answer any questions. I'm trying to be brief and concise. It's not an overly romantic topic, but it's certainly nuts and bolts.
I was just wondering why it wasn't in the budget, if I'm correct, I'm reading my notes that this wasn't budgeted because we're having to take this money out.
It was actually budgeted last year,
Oh,
and we didn't get to it.
Okay,
So it rolled over, and we would have to reallocate it out of the fund balance.
okay, all right, thank you for clarifying that.
The installation costs kind of seem like a racket, but I guess it is what it is.
You know, it's interesting, if I may speak to that. So I did some research, and like I said, it was fairly exhaustive. And the range is literally from one end of the spectrum, oh, well, we'll charge you $14 an hour, to we'll charge you $1,000 an hour. And I think it's one of those things that you have to arrive sort of in the middle. The company that we chose, if I'm not overspeaking or overstepping boundaries, is an in-house company right now. They do our service on copy or Sumner 1. They have an excellent track record. And when we talk to them, it's basically soup to nuts. They order, they unbox, they set up, they ensure that the end user is satisfied with the product, and then they move on. They allocate and dedicate the individuals and the time from beginning to end of the project.
And that's setting up like docking stations and everything.
Yes, sir.
For laptops.
Yes, sir. And it's a fixed cost, which oftentimes, at least in my research, it was difficult to find somebody that would pin a particular number down.
So if I recall, the DTI installation at 135 was an estimate that it would take them 3 hours per machine
Yes,
to
ma'am.
do that. So there's some opportunity that could be more.
Consent?
Consent?
Consent.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have an item on revisions to Chapter 600, alcoholic beverages. Pat's favorite subject.
One of my favorites.
Mark, did you have an update for us on that?
I do. In 2017, the Kansas legislature made that change so that those who currently sell CMB can now sell enhanced CMB, which is up to 6% alcohol by volume. So we needed to go through our code, make those revisions to make sure that was covered everywhere. We did add a couple other changes that were tied to distance requirements to ensure that we really wanted them to be what the state had. Ours were, we had a few other things in there, and so we wanted to back it down a little bit. And also, it gives us the opportunity, if need be, council can, by ordinance, override that. And, one of the examples that we talked about is if you had a microbrewery that maybe wanted to come in on Johnson Drive, we currently have a church that's renting space on Johnson Drive. So, you know, there might be an issue with the distance requirement there. So it's not just the thought of one coming in where traditionally a church is in a neighborhood or something like that. And it's in the core commercial district, business district, so. Just basic updates to the code. I will say when we look at the zoning code later, when in the year or whenever they get to that, there may be a few other additional changes to tie that in. But I think we're covered, and those that currently have CMB licenses will be able to sell starting April 1st. Enhanced CMB, you'll be able to get 6% now. There you go.
So I do have one question, this is kind of on the spot, but if the microbreweries wanted to sell like growlers, could they do it under this license?
So the microbreweries, they actually, yes, they can. I believe so. So they get licensed at the state as a microbrewery, and they also get licensed as a drinking establishment, which is what lets them have their tap room and sell to people, and then we license them as a drinking establishment. That's like their business license.
I didn't know what would let them sell things that left the premises.
Pretty sure on microbreweries, that's a provision in the state law.
Oh,
yeah, I think it's tied to how they're defined and what they're.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So some of the hours that you can sell alcohol, I think the state law is like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. They've changed it.
Okay.
But we can, some of the language I saw was 2 to 6, some of the language I saw was 2 to 9, I think it is currently.
For clubs, yeah, I think we left it at 9 for clubs.
I don't know, I didn't really,
I can tell you it's confusing, and we can go back and look at that, and.
I don't know, I mean, just because the state law is at 6 doesn't mean we need to open the bars at 9, right? I mean, we've got that discretion.
No, we can be more restrictive, we can't be less restrictive. Right, so.
I mean, I'm not advocating for all the bars.
Sure.
Great.
All right, cool.
Any other questions? Great. We take it to consent? All right, great. Next up, we have an item about the Rotary Club Street solicitation application.
This is annually, they come to the city and ask for permission for the Greater Kansas City Days to sell newspapers. It'll be March 28th between 6:30 and 9 a.m. at Shawnee Mission Parkway in Null, Shawnee Mission Parkway in Lamar, and Johnson Drive in Lamar.
We'll take that to council.
Would you recommend that we put that on the consent agenda?
I would.
All right.
It's probably not going to last because they're starting to charge it now.
What's that?
Hey man,
And for Casey.
don't fog it up.
Casey
Just don't shove cash our way, will you?
No, Casey starting to charge it.
Yeah.
Well, they gotta make money wherever they can.
I know.
Why, they just bought out all their people that we.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have any content anymore.
Yeah. I saw their printing plan too.
Yeah, that's right, they are.
Back when Mark had
Right.
But we have the Shawnee Mission.
That's true.
Tough times right now for some of the big news organizations.
We go to
All right.
consent, yes.
What else you got, Mark?
Consent. Next up, we have item number 5, resolution designated city-sponsored festivals and events. Martha.
Again, this is something that we do annually, and we're required to do that so that alcohol can be sold and consumed out on public streets. And all the dates that are listed in the resolution are the Thursdays, June through August, plus the 3rd Thursday in September.
Very good.
Yeah. And the Sunflower Festival, which I believe is a Saturday night. that will allow those that get a special event permit to sell, and then at the market, like we've had in the past, we'll mark off the area and designate where our festival event is, so.
Is that one listed? It's not listed.
What's that?
On the calendar?
It's on the very bottom.
Oh, down below, sorry, excuse me. I was looking.
Any thoughts about just adding every Thursday night as a, I thought, okay, never mind, I thought I just called it the third Thursdays.
No, we put down every Thursday for those months, so.
Oh, yeah.
And those that get special events that, permits, each retailer is only allowed 4 per year, so you have to kind of
Sure,
mix it up, who's gonna, which we would do anyway.
I mean, just, you know, if there's a month we want to do some of like toys or something like that, just to have the capability, it's great, so.
No, we've, secured vendors for every week but 2 so far, so we're on our way to having it every week. But also, this isn't the only time of year we could do this. We could bring it back if there was some other event we wanted to add.
Great.
Lisa?
Yeah, that sounds excellent. Last up, we have an item for a cereal malt beverage license application from CBS Pharmacy.
CVS would like, they put in an application, they'd like to sell cereal malt beverage at their store. They've
6%.
It's April 1st, it could be 6%, and they have gone through, they have a manager, gone through the background check, the chief has signed off on that.
They had added to the drive-through cart.
Great idea.
I don't believe so.
Pick it up, yeah, the pharmacy.
Missed that, there aren't any drive-throughs around here, are there?
Yeah, I like it.
It's the better.
I like that idea.
Consent.
All right, that concludes the action items. I don't know, Laura, if you have any other
I do
department
not
updates to cover.
have any updates.
I have an update. A week from Sunday will be St. Patrick's Day. I hope you guys will get out and celebrate. Just wanted to bring it up. Also on Saturday the 16th, I think, is the parade in Brookside. And this Sunday, the 10th, is the parade in Shawnee, which is...
Is it gonna snow?
I don't think so.
No,
No.
rain on Saturday, the 10th, yeah.
For those of us going to the city, is there any kind of materials or anything you'd like us to bring back for the city? Because I usually bring a ton of stuff
swag.
back, but you don't, I mean,
No,
everything's
no
in
swag.
paper department. You'd rather have it wet. Swag.
There gets you a lot of swag.
No
Lots
swag.
of flair, buttons and
No
tags and
squishy toys.
squishy toys.
And don't give them your business cards.
Yes. Please don't hand out our business cards.
Fair enough.
Could you bring me back a MAGA hat?
Oh my God.
We won't do that.
On one other quick note, I want you guys to know that I represented the city really well. I won case and butt in the mission project poker tournament. Took third place out of about 60 people. So. It was at Lucky's, in the basement of Lucky's. It's like their 6th annual, the last year. It's a good fundraiser. I think, I don't know what the final numbers that they raised were, but I'm guessing they definitely raised thousands of dollars for the. It's a really good event. I don't know the guy's name. He got lucky.
Wasn't good, he was just lucky.
And you came in third?
That's great. We're sending you to negotiate.
Let's go.
Real quick, I'm sure we all have comments that we've made to Chief and will privately, but I just wanted to thank the police department for what you guys have done. What happened at Highland.
We'll be able to talk soon, I promise.
And if anybody wants to see Brent's picture.
Brent does.
All right, well, if there's nothing else, I think we can go ahead and adjourn.
We do have a new calendar out with the work session.
Yes.
It's 27th.
Yes, so we'll have a work session on the 27th. Right now, we're slated to talk about tobacco 21 and then policy for council liaisons. And then we do have our half-day retreat on the 30th as well. So please make sure you get that.
What is the 27th?
We have a council work session. That's,
From what time to what?
well, it'll be, that's it. 6. So it would typically be at 7. If you would like to move it up earlier to 6:30, you probably need to vote on that at your council meeting. And then I don't know if you want to look at, sometimes we have adjusted our work session dates throughout the summer through the budget process, so that we just kind of do it once and then we don't have to remember to
I've
do
sent
that.
you material to be distributed.
Yes, I have that.
Oh, so at that meeting, we can talk about the summer calendar, so
Yes.
okay, great.
Yes.
So what time is that meeting?
6:30.
Well, you'll have to vote on it. If you want it to be at 6:30
Recommend.
on the 20th, March 20th, we'll just take a vote.
March 20th?
No.
Or-
we're talking about
At the meeting on the 20th, we'll
At the
vote.
meeting on the 20th,
We'll vote on
At the
we'll
council
vote
meeting.
to have the work session start at 6:30 on the 27th.
And then Council real quick, I just want to apologize, my pregnancy brain is in full swing, obviously. But the 30th, which we planned for our strategic planning day for our follow-up for our retreat, I will only be able to be there for the first half of it because I scheduled Harper, my daughter's 3rd birthday party at noon for that day. So I clearly am not thinking, that's also March Madness, what am I doing? I put down a deposit, so it's not negotiable. And I'm going. So anyways, I'll be there from 9 to 10:30, I just wanted to
What
apologize.
time is that?
9 to
We have
12.
9 to noon blocked off, yes, at the community center.
Yeah.
Well, if you order any extra cupcakes, bring them along.
I might be able to accommodate that.
Are you at the community center too?
No, we're at the Johnson County Arts and Heritage Museum.
Oh, cool.
You could have been right next door.
I know, I
Where's our meeting center?
What?
Community center.
Is
Is that where we're meeting?
Yes, I didn't hear the question, but yes, we're meeting at the community center.
I do, Laura, one quick thing to talk about.
Okay.